introduce myself. I'm Sean Cruz-Weisner. I'm going to be probably doing a lot of talking tonight, but interrupt me anytime. This is more conversational. I'd like to introduce Grady Miller, who's our new town manager, who's just joined us tonight. And we usually have a council member here tonight, Tom McGuire. So thank you, Tom, for joining us. So we got a PowerPoint for you to explain the new City of Phoenix Interconnect project that's ongoing in the town. And we're about to start construction on that. And I appreciate your time, taking the time out of your schedules tonight. So let's get going. So I'll give a quick agenda. I'm going to talk about the project needs. It's been ongoing, this project, for a number of years. So I think it's good to give everybody a background of why we did it. What are the different pieces, components that make up the project? The description of the site design, which is what you're seeing here, is some renderings of the site that we've been able to put together, and then talk about schedule for construction. So again, my name's Sean Cruz-Weisner. I'm the utilities director at the town. I've been with the town 5 years. To my immediate right is Todd Hansen. He's with MGC Contractors. They are the construction manager at risk. They've been brought on board to actually construct this for the town. And then next to him is Lisa Jackson. Lisa Jackson is the vice president of Black & Veatch engineer. So Black & Veatch has actually been involved with this project for close to 4 years now. So they've been doing some work from the original conceptual designs of how we'd bring Phoenix water into the system to actually designing this site for us. And they'll actually be helping us through the completion of the project itself. Oh, going too far here. So general overview. So for those who don't know, the town provides water within outside our municipal limits, as well as to outside to the Desert Hills area, the Maricopa County. We used to provide some service to Carefree customers. That's been separated. There's actually a handful of customers still left, but that process is almost wrapped up. It started a few years ago. So right now we just have about 4,400 customers between the two water systems. So we, as the utility provider, are responsible to make sure that we can provide reliable, safe, reliable water service. So what we actually have some challenges in doing that. So what most people don't know is about 90% of the town's water supply is actually coming from Colorado River water from the Central Arizona Project. Central Arizona Project is running, it sort of bisects the valley. Where we intercept it at is on Cave Creek Road and Deer Valley Road is actually, so the town, if you're not sure, aware, that has a pipeline that runs all the way down to Deer Valley Road. It's a 12.5-mile pipeline, 16-inch pipeline, where we pick up water and then we have to push it. It's an elevation of about 660 feet. So we have 4 booster inline pump stations that move that water up. So that's raw CAP Colorado River water that then gets brought into a treatment plant that we have in the town core. That's actually how we get most of the water to the customers. We have a couple of operational wells in the Desert Hills system, and we're looking at the wells in the main Cave Creek system, but that'll be years away. And I do not think it would ever supplement the need to bring Colorado River water and treat that water. So that's important to know because that's a single pipeline with 4 inline booster pump stations and 1 water treatment plant. It's all single points of failure of our water system. So, for us to provide safe, reliable water, we need to, it's typically you want reliability and redundancy in it. So this is a situation the town's had to deal with since before the town owned the water company, which was 2007 when we did the purchase. But it gets more challenging every year to run the system just because of the points of failure. And what you guys don't see is the work that goes on behind the scenes and the incidents that occur that we deal with to make sure that we can provide safe water. So when we talk about a CAP booster pump station, 3 of them are actually located below ground in vaults. I'm giving out our little secrets. When you go down Cave Creek Road, you might see one. So this is what they look like. Why they're really challenging is because this is what they look like inside. So each one of them actually has 3 booster pumps. You can't see them in here because they're in line. You actually have to physically crawl between the piping to get around these vaults. They're so tight. And this is actually what moves the water up to the town. I don't say this to try and scare people. I say this just to point out that the challenges that we have in operating the system and why would we want to make a connection to the city of Phoenix is because it actually helps us provide a more reliable water system. I put a little quote on there. Before I started working here, someone gave me a quote of like the town system, because of all the single points of failure, is like flying the airplane and trying to work on the engine at the same time. You don't have an opportunity. You don't have an option of failure. So when this pipeline goes down, it's our town's water supply. So it's all hands on deck. We've had issues with the pipeline breaking. We've had issues last summer, if people remember, with the booster pump station going out. That was a critical emergency for us. We got through it almost for 2 days, and we actually only had a small area of the system. And I feel bad for them with 22 customers who lost water during that event. But we were scrambling for 2 days to try and get this booster pump station, this specific one, back in operation because a power surge took out one of the pumps. So it's very challenging. So the town actually had an opportunity a few years ago to work with the city of Phoenix. So they're obviously a much larger system, and they did two things. We actually have two IGAs that's referred to as an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Phoenix. They were done in 2018 and in 2019, not too far apart. The first intergovernmental agreement addressed the fact, and I was talking to someone just before the meeting, that if you're not aware, the town is providing, our municipal boundary goes south of Carefree Highway, and we provide some water service south of there. It's typically to the commercial areas, the Walmarts, the Sprouts, the Abraza Hospital, are actually, um, Sprouts and Abrazo actually are on City of Phoenix water for potable water, inside drinking water, but they're actually on our water for fire service. Walmart actually has our water for both domestic, interior, and fire service. South of Carefree Highway is actually historically a City of Phoenix water company area. City of Phoenix actually had bought a water company that was their service area. So the first intergovernmental agreement in 2018 cleaned up that boundary to make it such, because City of Phoenix could not provide the fire protection for the commercial areas. City of Phoenix actually has to go and do system improvements. It's in a pressure zone that they didn't have adequate flows. They're spending several millions of dollars, and I have a slide that'll show that on system improvements so that they can take over that service area. So that's the first IGA, but then that led into the second IGA, which was a few months later, which actually was to allow Phoenix to actually do a connection to our system. Once they improve the pressure zone that's just that allows them to take over the fire service, is then the town can now actually get a agreement with them to divert, treat, and deliver. So what does that mean? We're not wholesaling water from Phoenix. They're taking some of our CAP water that we have rights to as a town, and they're going to treat it for us at their water treatment plant, and they're going to move it up their distribution system and deliver it to us as a connection point. So that's the divert, treat, and deliver. So again, we're not adding to the town's water resources, which is something we watch, but it gives us another water supply of getting water into the system. Because of their distribution system, they limited that to 1,000 gallons a minute. That's a lot of water. It's about 1.4 million gallons a day. In the summertime, we need about 2.5 or 2.8 million gallons. So it doesn't replace our summer water demands in the system. But during the winter, there's actually several months, probably we think about 3 months, where we could run the system off the City of Phoenix Interconnect. And what that allows us to do is take the pipeline, take the booster pump station out of service, take the water treatment plant out of service, and do major maintenance upgrades without having to do it while we're flying in the air. We can actually land that plane and do work on it. So it's a huge boost to the reliability and our ability to maintain the system. So again, it doesn't fully replace, and we're not becoming a City of Phoenix wholesale water customer with this, but we're effectively getting another water supply into the town to help for system reliability. So what's Phoenix doing? So this is not cheap for them. I believe they issued a contract a few weeks ago, actually at their February 20th meeting. They did the final contract award. I believe it was a total of construction is about $15 million. So they have two large water line projects they have to do. One on Lone Mountain, it's nearly a mile long, 16-inch pipeline. And then they have to come up Cave Creek Road. If you go down Cave Creek Road, south of Carefree Highway, you'll notice the City of Phoenix police station. Just south of that police station, you'll see a large antenna tower. The antenna tower is actually on the booster station site that they're going to upgrade. That's the one that feeds our pressure zone. So they'll be upgrading that site and bringing a new booster line up Cave Creek Road to tie onto the town's existing 16-inch line that goes south of Carefree Road. And then that'll allow them to take over service. They're going to insert a new valve into that line, and then that line will then feed our interconnect site. And I'll explain how we got to that premise or where that drove us to, but it was partly because of the infrastructure that was in place. But City of Phoenix is moving ahead with this work. They've got one contractor, I think, doing all three projects. So I forewarn everybody that Cave Creek Road is going to be a bit of a mess. I believe they said they got 9 to 10 months worth of pipeline work in Cave Creek Road. They're coming in the northbound lanes, so they'll probably be shifting traffic over to the southbound lanes and actually divide. Instead of 2 lanes, they'll have 1 lane each direction as they piggyback and make their way up the mile. So forewarn everybody, but realizing the end result is a betterment for the town's water system for them doing that work, and they're committed to doing that work, and they're spending several $1 million on that work. So when we started talking about a new connection to the city of Phoenix, the first question came up is, well, how do we bring this water into the system? That's actually the first contract and design scope that we actually engaged with Black & Veatch was, look at our distribution system. Where can we bring this water in? How can we get the best beneficial use out of this system? We have another exhibit will show our pressure zones and how what I mean pressure zones is the system's divided up about every 100 feet in elevation. We run a different what we call the pressure zone because we don't want the pressures to be too high, too low. But that means we have to move water either up or down the hill, and we have to do that. So we're along Carefree Highway is a lower zone for us. We have to figure out if we get the water in there, how do we move it up the hill? Or, there's a discussion of where do we place this site? Do we place it in the town core? We can't tie into the 16-inch CAP pipeline because that's raw water. This is actually, we're getting treated water from Phoenix. So that drove to a bunch of decisions. We had to think about water quality and water age. We are getting potable water from Phoenix, but we're at the top end of their water system. And then once it gets into our system, then it's got to go through our reservoirs to get to the top end of our system. So we have to consider ourselves, and we actually had Black & Veatch do a water model to say, how old could this water be in the system? And then do we have to do additional treatment on our side just because it's sitting in the reservoirs? So we looked at that. So we're looking at doing some treatment at this site. It'll be something that we do eventually. We're not going to do day one because we want to make sure we know what the quality is. We believe we're actually going to help the city of Phoenix's water quality by taking water off the top end of their system. We're going to be a good draw off their system and move their water through the system. So it'll be a benefit, we believe. But we designed the site so we can do what's called an aeration system that we can move air inside the reservoir to, we're not adding additional chemicals, we're actually using air and movement of water to strip off constituents that actually are impacted by water age. So, and we needed a site that was large enough. When we're talking about large pieces of equipment, we wanted to bring this site into a reservoir. While we're getting 1,000 gallons a minute from Phoenix, could we do just a connection to our system and bring that water in? Well, that'd be great, but then our customers don't always demand 1,000 gallons a minute. So the best place to bring it into is bring it into a reservoir, and then then can treat it if it's necessary, and then we can boost it into our distribution system as the system demands. So we have a constant flow from Phoenix. Then we're using the reservoir to buffer that storage that then we can feed it out to our customers. So that dictated, and we're talking about we need not just a site just for a above ground connection to Phoenix. We're talking about a reservoir and some booster pump stations. So the site parameters start to grow, and how much space do we need to fit all this equipment? And there's also an existing 16-inch pipeline in Cave Creek Road. South of Carefree Highway, Phoenix will take that over and it'll be part of their distribution system. North of Cave Creek Highway, we actually only have one interconnect between that 16-inch and our local distribution system. So by taking that disconnect out, we can actually have a dedicated line into this site. And then that allows us actually to have a dedicated line that Phoenix wanted for us. They didn't want us to tie again directly into the distribution system. We actually have a 16-inch line, which goes up to a metering vault site or metering site that then they know that it's just their water getting to that point in the system. So when we start looking at all those parameters, really the only site that we could see that was available was the parcel in question, a parcel that's highlighted, the new site. So it's north of the Lowe's. It's immediately north of the Historic West unit. It's just south of El Sendero Drive. So it's the parcel south of El Sendero Drive. It's a 3.6 acre parcel that the town purchased. This map also shows you the CAP4 booster pump station, which is the one I showed the picture of earlier. So that's the booster pump station on our 16-inch cap line that brings the water pipeline. When I first started 5 years ago, there was actually an ongoing project to try and replace all those and bring them above grade. So that's actually how this project sort of morphed. We had the IGA with Phoenix going on in that project. We were going concurrently, and it sort of morphed into this, hey, could we do one site that does two things for us, which allows us a spot to move this booster pump station out of the vault and give us an interconnect site. And that's what it's morphed into. So we actually have two things happening at the site, and I'll explain that when I get to the site exhibits for you. So this is a little bit closer up. I didn't hide the site a little bit with the graphic right now, but you're sort of seeing it's a 3.6 acre site. The town completed the purchase in 2020 for this. We've been holding on to this for a little bit. We've been actually spending some time wrapping up the design, but actually also having to work on funding. The project costs in the valley have been rising very rapidly for anything related to general construction, but utility construction specifically seems to be rising. So we've actually had to slow down a little bit just to make sure we have all the funding in place for this. The site, while it's 3.6 acres, sounds like a lot of land. When you start, and you'll see the graphics that, we actually had to provide a reservoir, a 1 million-gallon reservoir, the dual zone boosters, and then also the site for the Cat 4 booster pump station to be relocated. And we're actually going to improve our Cat pipeline with this site. Right now, we have our flow up the pipeline doesn't match our treatment plant, which actually adds inefficiencies to our treatment plant, which means that we're wasting more water at that treatment plant than we should be. We're going to actually add a small reservoir at this site to allow us to buffer that flow and better pace the flow of the water delivery to the treatment plant so the treatment plant can run more efficiently. So we're adding that improvement to the system, not only getting those booster pump stations out of that vault, that very constrained vault that we have, but we're improving the delivery mechanism of our CAP pipeline. So it's another great win for the town overall. So I talked about pressure zones, and this colorful map shows, the system that we operate here. Each different color represents the different 100-foot elevation, and sometimes ours are larger than 100 feet just because the way the system's been laid out. But you can see where the city of Phoenix water is going to come in along Carefree Highways, what we call our pressure zone 1. So as you go up Cave Creek Road, everything in that is higher elevations. It means it needs higher pressure to move it up to that. So one of the things that we had to really look at is, we didn't want this connection just to benefit the lower area of the town and in our interconnect with Desert Hills. And we wanted to make sure that this water could be moved all throughout the system. That's why we both looked at the water age issues that would happen when we move it through our existing reservoirs, and how can we move it up the sites. That's why when we talk about a dual zone booster, initially the site will come into a reservoir, the water will come in there, but we can feed the pressure zone 1 with one set of pumps, and then pressure zone 4, which allows us to boost it all the way up to the town core. The town core, we have the next booster site that allows us to move it up. So we can get beneficial use, and we can actually run the system off this City of Phoenix Interconnect during the winter months, again, increasing system reliability greatly. So when the project team, when we came down to the site, and I was driving down to the maps that you guys can already see in front of you right now, we had to think of what can we do to we know we're next to residential homes on the north and on the to the west, and again across Cave Creek Road there's residential Carefree customers. So we want to make sure that we were respectful of that. So you'll see that all the pumps and all the pumping equipment is on the east side of the site towards Cave Creek Road, away from the residential homes. We've put an 8-foot wall around the equipment. We actually initially were looking at a concrete CMU, concrete masonry unit wall, but honestly, the cost, the size of this wall, and you'll see the site, that was $1 million just to add a wall around this site. A concrete unit, we actually were able to save about $1 million by actually converting it to a metal wall, which we think actually aesthetically will fit in. It actually will have a patina on it, so it's not just going to be a shiny metal wall. It's going to be one of those rustification walls. So I think it'll look actually nice for Cave Creek. We're actually adding a landscape berm on the west side. Again, there's residents immediately to the west of the site. So as part of the cut and fill operation on the site, we're actually going to create a berm and put some landscaping on that. So again, it's helping shield the site. You can see that in the renderings that you see in front of you. The reservoir itself, 1 million gallons, is fairly large, and we've actually partially depressed that in the ground. We've depressed as much as we think we can practically do. The problem with the reservoir is, for every foot that we drop the reservoir into the ground, we have to then drop all the site piping and all the pumps a foot in the ground, and it adds to cost. We had to sort of figure out how far can we go down. I believe we're about 5 feet below the natural grade out there is what we're going to cut down and depress the reservoir, so it's not as massive on the site. Excuse me, my throat's going on. And then we also made sure that the driveway entrance was onto Cave Creek Road. So we're not entering into the residential neighborhood to the north and to the west of the site. Sure. The reservoir, total height, and you can see it's got a dome roof. So it's 22 feet to the top dome. The side walls are 15 feet visible. So, yeah, and actually, you actually beat me to the punch because that's I think on my next slide. So this is the site. Again, as we get into it, we cram a lot into it pretty quickly. Looks like it's stretched there a little bit. On the north end, you can see there's a natural wash that we had to maintain crossing the site. So we can't do much at that wash, and there's a little triangular section north of the wash that we can't really do much with. So The equipment area is in the yellow highlighted. That's where we have the booster pump stations, our electrical equipment. We actually will be bringing chlorine to the site. That's actually what we use for disinfecting in the town. And then you'll see the large 1 million gallon reservoir in the orange at the top, 124 feet in diameter. The side walls are 15 feet, and as you can see from the rendering, it's got the slope roof, so it's 15 feet at the sides. It's 22 feet at the peak. We're doing a domed design because of just it's a cost model. So you can do a flat design; it's actually more costly. So this is actually another way to save a little bit of money for the project itself. We thought actually it is better than a large mass, and I'll show you a photo of what we have: an existing flat roof reservoir in the town core, showing the landscape berm on the west side of the site. And then the small reservoir, 100,000 gallon reservoir for the raw water tank that allows us then to better operate our CIP pipeline, our CAP water pipeline to the water treatment plant. And that's located at the south end of the site behind the berm. That reservoir, we think it will be about 13 feet tall, much smaller. Again, the large mass on the site is the reservoir, but we think we've sort of hidden it respectfully and we've buried it. So with that, I can show, and this is just another version of it with more the equipment labeled, and we can get to that if I can explain that. But this is what, when we talk about a concrete reservoir, people think, you can see the graphics there that we've done. In the town core, off Hidden Canyon Drive, south of Cave Creek Road, there we actually have what's called the Neary Reservoir. That's a 1 million gallon reservoir the town built in 2008. So that's it's 83 feet in diameter versus 122. So ours is a little bit wider, but it's also squatter. This one's a flat roof at 23 feet high to the roof. So again, ours at side walls at 15 feet and it peak up at 22 with the rounding dome. But just give you a perspective of what they look like. This is a concrete reservoir. It will have the sort of rust, not a smooth finish, sort of this type of finish. You see some of the staining here because unlike ours, this one being a flat roof, it actually has drains, and the staining you see on the side is actually the roof drains. As it rains, it comes down and stains the sides. We actually probably need to get in here and power wash it, see if we can clean this up a little bit. So you can, as you can see, we did some site rendering. So we did 3 perspectives of how this site will be seen. We did the first one. And I think they're taking it, correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa, there's like 5 feet above ground, I believe is what we asked them to do. So when you're looking at them, there's not at the ground level, it's someone's eye level is what you're supposed to be doing as you're standing. So we did 1 coming southbound on Cave Creek Road and then 2 from the adjacent neighborhood just to see so residents can see what this may look like. And this would be you coming southbound on Cave Creek Road, approaching the north end of the site. As you come around, you'll see again we've got the metal fencing, and you can see the mass of the reservoir sort of tucked in the back at that point. You can see what we did here, and I'll just explain this, that the rendering actually shows the landscaping as we think it'll be about the time we plant it. So it will get bigger and grow. We actually did have a rendering that showed basically you couldn't see the site for all the trees, but we wanted to show, again, for a couple of years while the landscaping matures, this is what the site will look like, but it will blend in more and more as the landscaping does mature. You're approaching that wash area, so you can see the large boulders are actually the wash on the site. There's a large retention basin, so we actually hold that, so you can see this. I think it's and this is the site as you approach. The one thing about the site I didn't mention is as we go southbound, we're actually going to be adding a what do they call it? Deceleration lane. So we'll be widening the road a little bit so you can decelerate and turn into this. There's not going to be much traffic coming in and out of this site, but that was something. It's actually, we're in the town of Carefrees right away at this point. So that was their requirement for the site. We were allowed 1 entrance onto Cave Creek Road, and we were required to have a deceleration lane. So this is the site as from I should read my notes here, the northwest corner of the site. So again, coming in from that residential area to the south, you can see the berm is now starting to taper off and come back down. The reservoir is just hidden in behind it. And then at this point, you're not even really seeing much of the wall. And again, this is when the landscape material is first planted. And again, some of those trees will get very big and you won't will blend in. And as you go down more towards go a little bit south of there and looking directly west of the site, this is what we expect to see. You can see just in the background there, the rendering is showing you can see a little bit of Black Mountain at that point still. So you can see that, again, the reservoir, while being 15 feet high, is still massive. If this was a residential home, you could go up to 25 feet, I believe, in height. So we're below that. We do have the rounded roof, so that is perspective. But we think that, especially with this berm and the landscaping, it really does soften it, the view from the neighboring homes. So next steps, I've talked about a lot, the why we need this, why it's going to be such a substantial improvement to the town. So the town has been moving forward. We've been working on the design, trying to cram a lot onto this site. Again, when we first bought the site, we thought, 3.6 acres. But when you start looking at some of the constrictions that, it has a wash through it, it does bisect it a little bit. We don't want to build right up against the neighborhood. We want to be respectful of that. It does start to cram it down in. So we've done, I think the project team's done a good job of trying to make sure that everything fits on the site. But the next steps are we're going to be awarding the construction contract. We've actually already awarded a contract to MGC contractors to start pre-purchasing equipment. That means that in today's market, there's some items that are considered long lead items, electrical components, some of the pumps and motors. So we've already awarded MGC a contract for $2 million a few months ago to actually start that purchasing process to keep this on track. We're trying to bring this online in the spring of 2026. So almost 2 years, about 2 years from now is when we expect the site to be fully operational. Todd's already started purchasing some of the equipment, and then at the end of the month, next month, we're going to go to council and ask them to award the majority of the contract to allow Todd to continue the work out there. But in April, if everything goes if we award the contract in March, then in April, they'll start mobilizing on site. So they'll put up some temporary site fencing to secure the site. They'll start work on some of on the west side of Cave Creek Road. They actually have to tie into an existing water line to bring some water service into the site so they can use that for pre-soaking, et cetera. There is going to be some work in Cave Creek Road during the course of the project, and we'll give people advance notice. We have to actually cut into some pipelines. The 16-inch CAP pipeline, Colorado River Water Pipeline that we have, is actually just outside of edge of pavement. So we can bring that in, but we'll have to cut into that and bring it into the site. But we also have the 16-inch pipeline that we're tying into is actually in the would be the southbound east fast lane, what I'd call it, on Cave Creek Road. So we actually have to come across the road to bring that into the site. So that'll be something that, as that comes up, we'll make sure everybody's aware of what we're doing with the traffic control, and there'll be a lane of restrictions to bring that pipe work across. But that won't be till later in the project. In April, once we've got site fencing up, it'll be salvaging of native materials. There's been some that's been taken off the site already. We were actually working with another site to get some material, but we're salvaging some material that'll be taken off, and then they'll be clearing and grubbing the rest of the material out there and starting earthwork. So in a few months, once the major earthwork is actually, they'll start moving the mass of the dirt around. They'll start to cut out that retention basin. They'll actually start creating that berm along the west side of the site. So you'll start to see the layout of the site. Then Todd's crews will come in and then start building the reservoir later, and then doing the underground pipe work that's necessary as they work around the site for the continuation of the project. So, yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So I have a couple of concerns. Why is it going to take 2 years to have construction 2 years in front of my yard? So I'm just curious why it's 2 years, and will it restrict us being able to get down our street and to our house? I mean, I know this rendering is supposed to make us feel better about this, but this is right out my front door. This is right out my front door. So I'm a little concerned about the timetable and if our water bill is going to go up due to this construction. So yeah, I'm right. That's my driveway. The west view. That's
Oh, yeah. Okay. I was going to try and get back to that one that shows it just so everybody can see the overview. Yeah, there.
That it's 2 years of construction. Right? And that also that the plantings, I think they should put some mature trees in. I hope I live long enough to see full grown, but I think that would buffer a lot. I think if we had some mature trees put in and try to make it more palatable for the residents that actually live in that cul-de-sac.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we actually are planning to salvage some material from this plant, this site, and we actually are doing some work down at what we refer to the water ranch, the wastewater treatment plant. So this is all clean water. So our wastewater treatment plant, there's actually an area that we're going to make into a new parking lot area, and we're actually going to salvage material down there. So we actually will have mature material that we'll intersperse it with But obviously, I think it makes sense to put it on actually on the berm to be respectful to the neighbors. And then the street frontage, we can just put nursery material there and let it grow with some landscape irrigation. So yeah, we do plan to put some mature. I wanted to make sure because again, the first rendering we got, honestly, you couldn't even see the site because of the trees. It's kind of, which was good, but we want to be respectful. It won't be like that day one. And to answer the other question about the 2 years, there's just a lot to go on. I'm not sure if Todd can walk through it, but there's a lot of multiple steps to this construction. It's not continuous activity. It's just a lot of activity.
Yeah, exactly. So the one thing with the 2 years is what Sean alluded to earlier, is the procurement of the electrical equipment is really what's driving the longer duration of the job. So you'll see heavy activity at certain times in the project, but then you'll see a lull where we'll be waiting on things to arrive. And we've got to have all the other things in place, so when the electric does show up, we're ready to go with that. So back on your other question with your access, you're on that side right there on the west. I assure you, we will leave that open at all times there. In fact, if you need some improvements over in that area, we will even help you with that. So,
Not my driveway paved, but the actual El Sendero is pretty rough. It is probably going to get worse. Vehicles.
yeah, the one thing I live on Lone Mountain, so I get this area up here and I respect you guys on that, and that's where the crews that are going to be out here, we're going to be talking about that all the time, is talking about the residents. And as we get going, we'll introduce you to the superintendent that's out there. You'll have his phone number. You can talk to him anytime if you guys have any concerns or any of that. I want to assure you guys that you guys are a big concern with it, along with the safety side of it as well. So we want to keep the site safe and secure, but then also keep it, I know there's going to be noise as well. And again, we want to try to minimize that. The one thing not to sugarcoat it, but when we get into the concrete pours, and there is some in the summertime, we will be doing some early pours, but it's short windows of that. Okay.
Just, it wasn't mentioned, but is there gonna be like a construction fence so that they don't have to look at all the construction activity?
Yeah, there will be some fencing around the site, and I guess we can make that screen fencing to
That's what I'm
screen.
getting at,
Yeah,
the screen, so that you don't have to actually see all the equipment and all that while this is going on.
yeah. And again, once they start the earthwork, also, again, once they start building that berm, then you already have an earthen berm to hide a little bit. So
Right.
we'll be respectful, and we can work with the neighbors to give you as much peace and quiet from our operations as possible. Not you're looking into a construction zone all the time for 2 years. And again, as Todd said, it's going to be coming and going. This before your question, one other question about the water rates. This was actually built into the water rate. So that's why in 2022, we actually built this project and the increasing costs into the water rates. It's largely being funded by a loan. The town's done this before with the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority. So we actually get a long-term loan at a fixed rate from them. They loan to utilities, and the majority of the funding for this is coming through a loan, and we built that into the 2022 water rating impacts that we gave to customers. I won't say that rates won't go up because there's other drivers right now that are looking forward. We actually have, the cost of Colorado River water is going up, the cost of running the operation is going up, but this project has already been accounted for. But I will not say that rates won't go up because there's other drivers that we're dealing with. And we're doing another master plan that's pointing out some other deficiencies that we need to work on, but that's a public process. You'll be informed all the way along and be able to interact with the council on that.
Yeah, so I understand the extra capacity that our reservoir, the new reservoir is gonna bring, but what I'm having a problem with is the redundancy. So those vertical inline pumps that we're currently using through the 16-inch high pressure line, you're teaming into that?
No, we're actually doing, this site will actually have two things. So the 16-inch line you're referring to, I'm assuming is what we call the cap line, which brings the raw water cap line. So we actually will be removing the one cap booster pump station, or replacing the one that's right in front of Lowe's right now and moving it up to this site. So that's one component. The other components are all tied to the potable water that we're going to be getting from Phoenix. So we actually will have raw cap water moving on the south end of the site and potable water moving. They'll be separated, the pipes for safety and everything that we need there. But you actually have two functions going on at this site itself. I don't know if that explains it.
16-inch lines, redundancy, and plus one coming into this new reservoir.
Yes, we have the 116-inch line that moves our Colorado River water right now. And then we will now have a 16-inch connection to the city of Phoenix that feeds into this site with potable water. So, okay. Yes.
Couple of process questions. I know we're talking about construction, but can you back to traffic a little bit? If coming in off of Cape Creek Road, you mentioned that this would get treated with chlorine. Does that come in by way of truck? How often does that come in? What kind of impact does that have, or how would that impact the neighborhood there?
Yeah, good question. We do use bleach, liquid chlorine. It's actually bleach, is 12% bleach solution as the town's disinfection. We use that at our both at our water treatment plant right now. We use it at the wastewater treatment plant, and we use it out in Desert Hills at our well sites out there. So that's one of the reasons it'll for the deceleration lane on Carefree Highway, our Cave Creek Road, it'll allow it to turn into the site. And let me get back to the site layout. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a turn off
You'll have an
lane.
added lane there that's added over there to.
And you can
to
see
the site.
the space, the gates are actually set back from the road. I think the next exhibit shows a little bit better. So there's an area, so it'll decelerate and then be able to turn in and actually park by our gate and not be in sitting out in traffic.
How often does it like that?
You know, we're already getting potable water with chlorine in it from Phoenix. We just have to top it up from sitting in our reservoir. So we anticipate every couple of weeks we might have a delivery. Yeah. Yeah.
Water pressure.
Okay.
Some other municipalities, they definitely have, the higher up the joke is, the higher up you go, the higher the water pressure. How does this impact the pressure regulators that you have to have in your houses? Because I can tell by the color system that you have there, is that going to be a problem in certain areas where people might have higher water pressure than they thought before, or would they have maybe lower water pressure than they thought before?
A really good question. We're not actually going to be, we're fitting this site into the existing pressure zones. So we're matching what the current pressures are in the system. So this site will have a set of booster pumps that can pump into the zone 1 pressure, which is the larger zone that we have along Carefree Highway. We're not changing those pressures. We're going to actually bring a good point. We're actually, our current master plan is doing some recommendations that we might want to drop the pressures in that zone. And we're going to do that over the next few months to see how that works and see if that impacts customers. We do run the system pressures fairly high along Cave Creek Road. Around where our treatment plant site is, the system operates about 120 pounds of pressure, which is not ideal. It's very high. So we're actually trying with our master plan, they're recommending we try to lower that. And we're going to try and do that this summer to see how that impacts it. And that drives into what pumps that they do. But this site will match the pressure zone that we have there. And then the other set of pumps is actually to move the water north up Cave Creek Road into pressure zone 4, which then gets it into the, it'll actually allow us to get water into our Neary site so that if we want to take the treatment plant offline or something catastrophic happens to our water treatment plant, we can actually send the city of Phoenix water up to the Neary site and then feed the rest of the customers out of the system. So that's why the dual zone, but we're trying to, we're tying this into the existing pressure zones, but we actually are working on modifying the pressure zones because we do have very high pressures in some areas of the system, and we're respectful of that. And it's not a good way of running the system. We're trying to figure out how to optimize that. And that's we have an ongoing master plan that's looking at that work. Yes.
Question. If in the future, Lake Mead goes down because of severe drought conditions, there's a good chance that we could be cut back in our allocation. My question is, the 1.44 gallons per day provided to us by the city of Phoenix, is there a chance that that could go down also if Phoenix is perhaps faced with a cutback? I know they have different sources, wells, more storage, SRP, water, etc. And the second part of the question is will there be, or is there any restrictions on that 1.44 million gallons a day as how many days we can draw from that, either in gallons or in a time frame?
Sure, you have some very good questions. Let me I remember to answer it all. So yes, there are some issues going on with the Colorado River and the allocation that was handed out to the 7 basin states that actually feed off the Colorado River, Arizona being one of them. So those are ongoing discussions. So the town has a CAP allotment, effectively a contract for Central Arizona Project Water, Colorado River Water of 2,228 acre feet. We have an additional 386 acre feet that was purchased for Desert Hills to supplement them. With the reallocations, that might change. So that's something we need to watch for. As far as the impact to Phoenix, Phoenix is only treating and diverting water for us. So it's, if we have the water resources, they can treat and divert it for us. Their infrastructure is robust enough to do that. That's one of the reasons they have to do the improvements for them to get the connection. And 1,000 gallons a minute was really limited by their distribution system. We're getting water from, I think they call it it's not the Deer Valley plant, it's Union Hills. They call it the Union Hills plant, which is at Deer Valley Road. That always confuses me. That's where their water treatment plant is. That we're our primary water supply. I believe we're 5 pressure zones up the hill from that booster site. So we're in pressure zone 10A is where we're connecting onto it. So they're having to make improvements so that pressure zone can feed us the 1,000 gallons a minute. We've as far as how we can get that water, that's partly up to us. I've actually talked to another jurisdiction that did a recent connection to the city of Phoenix they can get up to 1,500 gallons a minute. And they've worked out an arrangement with Phoenix where they call their distribution group ahead of time and say, if we're going to make a change, we'll let them know, because, and effectively we're like a fire hydrant at the top of the Phoenix system where they're going to open it up. And we have multiple impacts to multiple booster sites, multiple reservoirs to their system. So we need to be respectful of that to their systems. We'll probably place an order with them and say, hey, we'll start off at 500 gallons a minute, or we want 1,500, or we want 1,000 gallons a minute from you, and we'll let their system know, so their system operators know what's going on. The cap on the 1,000 gallons a minute was really an infrastructure cap. That's when they looked at their booster site, because not only giving us 1,000 gallons a minute, but now they're actually taking on the fire load of a very large commercial building, which is the Walmart. So they need to be able to provide fire flow in addition to the 1,000 gallons a minute they're given to us. That's what's driving their booster station, and to meet the customer demands. So in the future, we are actually, in part of our master planning exercise, we're looking at, could we do a second connection to Phoenix? And that's actually allowed for in the IGA. So the master plan is looking at other connection points that might happen. But as far as, since they're just diverting and treating for us, I think it's, I don't see an issue with Phoenix not being able to divert. As long as we have the water to give to them, we still have to have the water in our account with the Colorado River and the Central Arizona Project to allow them to do it. And that's what that restrictions could be. So if our allocation drops, and right now we are not using all the town's water allocation, but we are doing a master plan that's looking forward to say, you know, how will the town's water resources look in the next few years? What happens if there's a reallocation of all the Colorado River? Just historically, when the Colorado River was divided up, it was in the 20s or 30s, I believe the compact was put in place between the 7 states. The river was historically producing about 17 million acre feet of water a year. An acre foot is enough to cover, you know, a football field 1 foot deep. That's an acre foot. In town, each home typically using about half an acre foot of water. So again, when the Colorado River everybody was dividing it up, the river was consistently pushing out about 17 million gallons. Historically, we've been in a 25-year drought. Right now, it's only about 12 million gallons, 11 to 12 million gallons annually. So there's a shortage. It didn't matter several decades ago because no one was using all their allocations. Now all the states that are tied to Colorado have been using the allocation. So now it's coming to a head. And that's why in the next few years, there's some legal things that are being done. And that's something we have to watch very closely for the town. But as far as an infrastructure, this is actually really an infrastructure contract with Phoenix to treat and deliver and bring water into our system for us. So,
will this improvement have any effect on the Desert Hills area, the Desert Hills Water Company, as there may be more growth out there in that part of town than in like the town core or central part, or is it strictly segregated from that?
So our water system is tied all together. Great question. A few years ago, when you start talking about Desert Hills growth, I sort of wince a little bit. But in 2021, the town took the hard line of restricting new water connections out in the Desert Hills Water Company. So the town bought both water companies in 2007. We've been operating them. We operate them as separate utility funds, but in our minds, it's one system. So there are customers we provide water to them. We could not control growth because it was outside our municipal limits, and the town had to make a decision, and we haven't been challenged on it yet, is to say that, you know, we unless there's an existing contractual obligation, we weren't going to provide new water meters. There's only been, since 2021, there's only been a handful of new water accounts added to Desert Hills. The growth is actually all, the new connections have all been inside of Cave Creek. We foresee that there's actually 2 neighborhoods out there that have what's called a certificate, so they could develop. There's 2 subdivisions out there, and that's, but neither developer has been able to make the project work. So I don't see them happening anytime in the next near future. So I don't see much growth out there. This being in pressure zone 1 is the main feed from this site. Actually, pressure zone 1 is what is our feed to Desert Hills. So it'll help us make sure that the water can get out to them. We still have a pipeline restriction getting water out to Desert Hills. There's a single 8-inch pipeline, is about a mile stretch that is the stress point in the systems. And we're trying to make Desert Hills be more independent. That's going to require us doing work on the wells out in Desert Hills. We believe we have to probably re-drill 1 to 2 of the wells, and we have to do an arsenic mitigation system out there, which is very expensive. But we're also have different water rates for the Desert Hills customers. You might not have noticed that in 2020. I can't remember if we did in 21. I know we did it in 22, but we actually set different rates. So up till that time, the Cave Creek customers and the Desert Hills customers got paid the same rate, the same base rate, and the same volumetric rate. We made that decision, and to say that, you know, they are separate operations. It's a different water system. They have different water supplies. They don't actually have, except for a little bit of CIP water that's all coming from Cave Creek. We have to supply them. So we actually have them pay us back for that. And there's a different rate out there. So I think it's working out. Again, we've done a really big restriction on the growth out there from 21 till now. And that we're not, the policy was put in place and said, unless we can find new water resources for Desert Hills, we can't allow for new connections unless, again, there's a contractual obligation. Someone had an old certificate or an old contract with the water company that we had to honor. So we'd otherwise be legally challenged. But there's only been a handful of customers out there. I've had a couple of customers do some pretty silly things out in Desert Hills, but that's something we're going to have to deal with as staff and talk to them about, you know, their water usage. But any questions? Oh, gentleman back.
Several.
Okay.
So when you get, so the county Cave Creek through the general fund, if you alone, they pay back the interest over it. That's how it's done.
No, the main the town received a loan from the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority. It's short, an acronym is WIFA. That's about $13.1 million of the project is funded through the water infrastructure. That's a loan that the water companies actually pay off. It's actually, they look at the water company debt service balance sheet, not the town's debt service balance sheets, and they make sure that the water company's whole, and then they loan us the money. So we have a loan from them, about $1 million of that is called forgivable principal, which means it's a grant. So we have a $1 million grant from them and a $12 million loan that then the water users pay back. In addition to that, we've been seeking out a $2 million congressional grant. We've been told we've been shortlisted, but with everything that's going on in the federal government, we have not been given the monies. We have another 2 years to make that application, get that money in. In addition, the town actually has some, it's called SFLRS funds. It was the COVID relief funds, and the town made the decision to actually dedicate, there's almost $2 million. They said that the town received that as federal grant dollars. They're going to put that towards this project. And if you're not aware, the town does have a half-cent sales tax that actually goes, that was put in place partly to help fund purchasing operation at Spur Cross Ranch. The unused portion that is not necessary to help fund Maricopa County running Spur Cross Ranch is actually put into a water infrastructure fund. So there's $3.2 million sitting in that fund that's going to be swept out and was put aside for paying for projects like this. So there is a need to ask the town general fund to help supplement that, but not by much at this point. Yeah, but from a funding standpoint, it's all being paid for by the Cave Creek Water Fund. It's Fund 50 in our vernacular in our budget. So it's the Cave Creek water customers who took out a loan from the state of Arizona Water Infrastructure Finance Authority. Yeah. They get the EPA distributes money to the states. Each state has a Water Infrastructure Finance Authority. Then they distribute it locally. So we have a loan with WIFA that is actually they got from money from the EPA. So we have a loan with them. The water company has a loan with them. You know, obviously the water companies operate as the town, so it's our mayor and our council who signed off on the documents. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's built into the water rates. That's why in 2022, we looked at all that. We looked at the amount of that loan. They require us to keep a certain debt service, debt ratio. And we had to look at all that, make sure that we had all documentation in place. And that's a $13.19 million loan is what we have on for that. So.
So that cleared the one part. The second part is, as I understand it, there's some unused Colorado River water line that is a loop for whatever year. They decided that give that percentage to Phoenix, process the water and pump it up here and up to the reservoir. Is that how that works?
No, it's the Colorado River water. There's actually, they have different levels of what they call subcontract priorities. Most of the town, or all the towns, the town Cave Creek's water is called municipal and industrial, which is one of the higher priorities. It is, when you refer to use it or lose it, and effectively you pay for the water, there's capital costs running the Central Arizona project. You pay for all the water that you have, and then you pay for what you ask for delivery. So for a number of years, the town was just getting delivered about half of our water allocation, and that was directly being spent to customers. For the last I don't think it's been 3 years, I think it's been 2 years, we've actually asked for all of our water to get delivered to us, but we don't take it all out and deliver to customers. Some of it we actually work with Central Arizona Project and put as recharge into the ground, and we're generating long-term storage credits for the town. So for the last couple of years, we've been ordering all of our water where previously we didn't. There was some discussion on, you know, whether or not if jurisdictions weren't using all their water allocation, when we start looking at redistributing the funds, but that conversation hasn't gone too far. The town also has what's called non-Indian agricultural water. That's the water that was purchased for Desert Hills. That actually has already been cut. We bought 386 acre feet of water for Desert Hills to help supplement their water supplies. And because of the ongoing drought situations, the first year we got that water, we actually had a cut on it. We could only order 75% of it. So there are different issues going on, and it's hard to explain cap water. I almost needed a graphic to show you, but there's what they call priorities in the river. The towns is more secure than the little bit of water that we bought for Desert Hills, but Desert Hills is we're trying to supplement them and make them a whole system without having to draw off of Cave Creek. But yeah, we are trying to actively pursue using and get beneficial use out of all the town's water resources and putting the water. We're partnering with the Central Arizona Project, and we use their recharge facilities, and we're generating what are referred to as long-term storage credits. We have a bank account in the CAP's resources in their recharge facilities that then we can ask to say, can we get that water put back into the canal at a later date for us? So that's what we're trying to generate for us as another solution to, if the drought continues, there's going to have to be some drastic thoughts and processes put in place to how do we keep water in the pipes to customers? So
The part that you're getting next to the process,
Hmm.
our allocation of water.
Hmm.
So maybe it's on the website, but I didn't see like, it takes 2 years. It sounds like you're essentially building another water treatment plant, which is great. But why can't we put a second line in and treat it there instead of relying on a third party? Yes, I get it's immediate. Hey, we'll give them the allocation, they run it, they could do it in 3 months or up, but we're spending 2 years. We could run another pipe or two down Cave Creek Road and do that at a new facility. Just looking at the costs and then how far was it down? How, what was your median time to repair? We kind of about parts, like just delay, like what do you have on staff? Do we not have like water pumps on trailers that we could hook up? Just looking at the costs, it seems like relying on Phoenix is a vulnerability. And just looking last year, I think Phoenix took $66 million from the federal government to give up Colorado River water. So, and it just telling people like suck it up and conserve more. If they do that and take our water or that pushes it in our area, we don't want to be affected by that policy down in Phoenix. Where
yeah, you bring up multiple points. Start a little backwards there. Yeah, actually, the town was also approached by the Central Arizona Project. Actually, so Cadre does it, and about if we didn't need to take all our full allocation off the river, the state in total is trying to preserve the amount of water in Lake Mead and Lake Powell By doing that, they asked jurisdictions and what they call subcontractors, if you didn't need the water, can you please give it back? And they actually sweeten the pot by saying, we'll pay you not to use the water. So I think you're referring to that with Phoenix. We actually got that same offer to the town. We thought the best thing for the town was actually to put that water in the ground still and get the recharge credits. So that was our decision. The idea of another pipeline, again, the pipeline we have right now is 12 and a half miles. And it's when they built it, a lot of it actually was an unincorporated Maricopa County. And when Cave Creek Road was 2 lanes, I can't even fathom what that pipeline would cost us to parallel right now to bring it.
Pipeline, so
Well, Phoenix is building their infrastructure system, but theirs is a potable water system. So they're just augmenting it. So ours is a raw water. Yeah, again, when we talk about Phoenix, again, our main source from Phoenix is going to be one of their Union Hills water treatment plant, but effectively Phoenix has a distribution system that has a lot more redundancy in it than we will ever have because they have multiple treatment plants they can move water around. So even if their Union Hills treatment plant's offline, they still have to provide water to their customers, and we're actually a water customer, so they will move water in their system to make sure that there's water coming up here. So from a reliability redundancy standpoint, tying on the Phoenix's system is always going to be much more better or more reliable than we can ever make this system without spending multiple millions of dollars, more so than yeah.
but
Yeah.
It's sort of double, so it's cheaper. Right, like third parties, security. So, yeah. Probably our infrastructure, or we get that second point, like, you can have six months to it. Now, I guess someone in there can know, I'm not sure where it came from, but, and, maybe a silly question, but wow, I think we have one well. A well not, find out water, secondary to that, this is great, I'm not from the area of the Midwest. A water tower is not desirable, but it's kind of like the.
Actually, yeah, I've actually originally from the the Northwest. Yeah, water towers are a lot more common up there. Out here, ground set reservoirs, people don't want it to have water towers obstructing views. And that's why people like to put ground reservoir. You will see reservoirs on the side of hills. Sometimes that's called floating storage that replaces effectively an elevated tank, but they notch it into a reservoir. You very rarely will see a water tower out here like you will in the Midwest. Yeah. 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 It's just I think when I first came here 20 plus years ago, the thought was that, people don't want the views obstructed. So you keep it on the ground. But as far as, we're gonna have to look at this because, Phoenix sets a rate per the IGA. Every 2 years they can renew that rate with us, and they will tell us what it's going to cost us to ask for water from them. We have to balance it out. We are not giving up on the town's water, CAP water delivery pipeline or a water treatment plant. This just gives us a backup. As staff, we'll have to figure out how we best balance that because, it's a challenge to staff the plant. There's issues with maintaining the plant. So, is it best to bring the City of Phoenix water in a certain 1,000 gallons a minute or 800 gallons a minute? And then how do we run the treatment plant? So there's a lot of things, but it gives us options, which we don't have right now. I don't have any options. If I lose a staff operator, I potentially, and we had to do last year, is bring in contractors to run the treatment plant for the town because I can't say, oh, sorry, everybody, you don't get water tomorrow because I don't have someone to be running a shift. We don't have the opportunity. By tying on to a much bigger system, we add to the town's reliability just multiple folds. I don't know how to express that, but it is something we will look at from a cost benefit analysis. It is an expensive project. The project costs have risen in the last few years, but construction costs have risen. I've looked and talked to my peers in the valley, and they're all going through the same thing in municipal government and even private utilities. Just the costs have just risen so fast that we can't keep up with them. So we have to start the project because it's never going to be cheaper than it is right now. Yeah. Yeah.
Someone else is doing it, they're giving you economy of scale savings. They're gonna raise the price more down the line, and you don't have your CapEx investment is a big jump in. So like, we've got switch point, a big example at AWS. Everyone thought the cloud's great, but honestly, like Amazon gets you one cheap and then start raising the price. And then now everyone's like, exit cloud. I'm like, well, buy your own server and switches because it's cheaper. Yeah. So I'm thinking like the job facility with reservoirs are gonna have potable water. It's like at some point, like we should have options. So if Phoenix is like, gonna raise the cost on us or restrict water because they just decided, you know, they want to provide for themselves. Just be able to switch that year to year, or we stuck to a 20, 30-year commitment. Um,
Yeah, the agreement actually is it's a 10-year term renewable in 10-year increments. That's the term of the agreement. We're investing a fair amount of money into this infrastructure, and I've worked with Phoenix, and I've worked in other municipalities, not in Phoenix, in the Valley, and Phoenix has always been a good partner. So again, in the grand scheme of things, I use the analogy: we're a rounding error to their water resources, but it's very important decimal place for the town customers. So we're not that big of a challenge for them to balance it out. But if things get really tough, yeah, there's going to be some tough decisions, and could that impact us? With our master planning, we actually have looked at the town's wells. You brought the wells up. The water company was started in 1954 in Cave Creek, and it was groundwater based. So the water company had a number of wells, and they were tying it together and provided metered service. They saw that, again, the aquifer up here isn't as stout. There's a lot of customers up here who are being very successful having individual wells. The wells that they had were having issues with water quality and water volume. So in 1990, they had the foresight, a little before 1990, to actually go and get a Colorado River allocation. They paid for that. And then they actually built the infrastructure, the pipeline and the treatment plant to get what was called renewable water, surface water, to the town for a water supply. As we look forward with the potential shortages that could be occurring, we are actually looking at the existing wells, which haven't operated for a number of years, and we're going to have to do some testing to find out the water quality and water volume, and see if they are viable to bring back online. So, as a backup, yeah.
Water, I didn't think that's treat wastewater. So you treat it, you put it back in the ground, use aquifer, or what happens to that? Great.
Yeah, it's another issue we have. Currently the town's wastewater treatment plant we have a contract with the Rancho Miana Golf Course, and we send the water to them for irrigation use. We see we have to try and get a beneficial use out of the wastewater because they can't use all our water at all the times of the year, and they actually get water from our water treatment plant, what we call the backwash water. As we treat water, we're actually taking material out of the wastewater, the raw water. That's called our backwash water. So we send them both water streams. We look at that as an overall water resource, and we're looking to see how we can make that more efficient. We're trying to see, we actually did a study to see if the town can recharge, which you'd think we could. Well, we can actually get good recharge, especially down by Cave Creek Road. The problem is we won't be able to recover that water because when I put a gallon of water in the ground, it's going to be south of Carefree Highway before we know it. So they're recommending that actually we've actually approached Phoenix about this, is partner with Phoenix. There's that golf course just south of Carefree Road. I was the name of the town. That's actually fed by City of Phoenix and on their reuse system. So maybe we can put a pipeline south of Cave Creek Road, Carefree Highway, sorry, and then we could actually supplement their system. So instead of them pumping water 12 miles north to get to that golf course, we send it south across the road and get an exchange with them, and then that builds up a credit that then we can use through the Interconnect site. So we've actually started that conversation with them. So yeah, when we look at water as a utility, water, wastewater, effluent water, it's actually all water to us. It's just we move it in different buckets and yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm thinking like, okay, elevation, we got old mines, is there a way we can get it to a certain depth where now it doesn't flow down in Phoenix, it stays here, while our wells kind of get recharged and,
Yeah, from what we actually had a hydrological study. Sorry, tongue twister for me there. And they looked at it, and again, in the town core, there's sort of a dish area, but we're actually don't have a very good thick aquifer area up in here. It's viable, especially for the private wells, but it's not good for like a water protection well or for recharging. The wells that we actually have in the town core, then we can look at them. The groundwater table in some cases it's visible 40 feet down, so there's not much room. So the state won't allow you to recharge because they're afraid that you're actually going to raise the groundwater table and actually cause damage. So we're not in a good area for doing long-term recharge. And again, the best location for us was along Cave Creek Wash, along Carefree Highway. But we put that water in there, it's not going to stay there in that aquifer. It's going to go down gradient before we know it, and we can't get any beneficial use out of it except paper water credits. And I don't want to. I can't put paper in the pipes.
figure out what the delta is of like, does that will prove activated as well? Put water in it, whatever reach it will, well, something up. Yeah.
Another interesting, good conversation, because one of the things that we have with the intergovernmental agreement with Phoenix is that we actually have access to their recharge wells that they have along Cave Creek Road. They gave us access to 3 of the wells, so we could, if we needed to, actually recharge with Phoenix and recover from Phoenix. That's actually built into the IGA. So we, yeah, it's costly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so it's more cost effective and a lot cheaper for us to actually recharge with the Central Arizona project and their large recharge facilities by an order of magnitude of about 100. So for the cost of the gallon of water right now. So, but that is another option. It's actually Phoenix agreed to that, and we actually have all the permits in place that we could tomorrow place an order with Phoenix saying we'd like to put water into your wells and generate credits, and then or withdraw that once we generate the credits. So.
Yeah, we good to know that. Like this. I was briefly in California, and the water situation there is very wrong. So, try to move it around and pump it, and so yeah, yeah, if we can eventually build capacity and get wells to be used or turn on as needed with newer technology, and now you're talking about equipment. And I'm pretty sure most of the Keystone pipeline equipment is still on auction. There's a lot of electrical equipment, and part of the build though is like 2 years on. Like, are you building the facility on site, or are you building them off site and then going to transport them and hook them up?
Like most of the electrical equipment and pumps and motors will be, they're being built off site and brought in. Another nuance to the fact that we're accepting most of the funding is coming from the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority loan, because that's tied to federal dollars. There's actually a clauses. So we actually there's a Buy American clause in there, and there's also a Davis-Bacon prevailing wage clause that we actually have to meet, because we were receiving in effect federal dollars. So, there's some equipment, we can't just purchase equipment. It actually has to meet certain criteria. Todd is very much aware of this, and we actually had to go through and disqualify a couple of vendors that were reaching out to him to try and get on the list to actually get equipment purchased, because it wouldn't meet the criteria that we actually have as part of receiving the monies from the federal government through WIFA. We actually were, it was a Japanese.
Yeah, it was from Japan, so.
Yeah. So, so there are restrictions what we could do. And then again, if you talk about other larger projects, would it meet the scale of our pumps? Our pumps are big, but they're in the scale of something like a Keystone project, they're tiny. So, yeah. Yeah.
Circuit breakers, wiring, like building materials. You essentially build a thing off site, heavy wide load transport in a weekend, get it on site, hook it up, and save you like 6 months rather than someone directing a building, getting like specialty welders to put together probably stainless steel welding or whatever. And there's a lot of savings. So 2 years sounds, I see larger facilities assembled faster in 2 years. I know that, yeah, you got to work around fiscal year and all that, get things purchased, but it's ways around it. And I don't know if you can allocate certain vendors faster. There's been downturn, and they try to get contracts. Well, I know the October timeline passed, but
yeah, you bring up a lot of good points there, but I was brought up the analogy that in construction you either get quality, cost, or things. So if you want to do it faster, it's going to cost you more money. So, yeah, and just in general, the Phoenix metro area is still in a construction boom going on. We still haven't. One of the driving factors is going to be getting the electrical service. So we're going to have a lot of equipment ready. Right now, we're still waiting with APS to get the final design documents from them, and we're hearing stories of projects being held up because Arizona Public Service can't get a transformer to a new site. So we're trying to. That's one of the driving factors. Could Todd's group build this faster? Yes, they could, but they just don't have the equipment. We're going to sitting around waiting for stuff. So he's got to schedule everything, and he's got other projects he's managing. So it's a schedule that works out, and it's really if in a market a few years ago, could have probably done it in 18 months, but I think it's today's market. We're really being driven by a 24-month schedule. It sounds like a lot of time, but it's really a lot of it's going to be hurry up and wait for a lot of stuff to come through.
Yeah, like Sean was saying, that it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. Until you get it approved through APS, APS will not place the order for the transformer. Transformer itself is about 80 weeks.
yes.
Well, APS is bringing in your transformer, so your service entrance, your power feeding the facility comes from APS. After it gets past the service entrance, then it becomes Cave Creek's power.
So, yeah, very good questions. Is anybody else? I know we could go all night here talking with you. I wouldn't mind that. So, yeah.
Next question.
Yes.
Is it possible that in several years from now, our utility bill, i.e. specifically the water bill, could be stabilized without increasing it or even having it go down, given the fact that the $60 million in debt the town once had
Mhm.
is now down to about 20 million,
Mhm.
and there's about, I think, 4 to 4.5 years remaining
Mhm.
on those WIFA loans to where they'll be paid off. With this additional new debt we'll be assuming for this project, and obviously we're reducing the overall debt more than what this would add.
Mhm.
Could that stabilize the water bill, or do you, the town or the water department, have already earmarked what you're gonna do with the, when the loans are paid off?
I'm looking over your shoulder and seeing Hal Marin, our town engineer, yeah, who's saying he wants money for road work. Yeah, the town took on debt to buy the water company, and then the town immediately, so if people don't remember, actually did an 18, I think it might have been a 16-month project to actually rebuild the water system right after that, and took on another round of debt. So the water company, I think, cost $20 million, and then immediately they went in and spent $16 million on improving this system because it was so unreliable at the time. That's the debt that's being referred to. That those loans were 20-year loans, and they actually will be starting to expire. Sadly, because of the aging of the system, we're looking at our master plan, and we're looking at a lot of the projects that are needed, the water line, new loops that we need to do. Again, the cost of a water line now is just, it's horrendous to see how much it costs to actually put a water line in compared to what it's 10, 20 years ago. So our master plan is actually pointing out some projects that we should be doing, which I don't think will completely replace the debt service that we're paying for, but it will show that we do have a good 10 to 15 years worth of work ahead of us. And then because we're dealing with a water system that runs 24/7, it's constantly wearing out, and we constantly have to do replacements. You know, the water treatment plant was originally built in 1990. It's been through several upgrades, and we recently added some membrane treatment units out there. At some point, we're going to have to spend some money on rehabbing that facility. But as we've been learning about the systems, I've been learning about the system in the last 5 years I've been here. We've identified several large projects that we need to take on. That's what's coming out of our master plan. And we do that master plan, then we'll feed into, I expect to do an update to the rate study once the master plan's been vetted through council and adopted by council, so that we can look and see what the financial impacts are and what we can afford to do. You know, I'd love to say, hey, we're not going to do rates, but I'd be lying to everybody. You know, we're being as prudent as we can, but realize that from 2009 to 2020, the town didn't have utility rates. They were stable. Well, the backside of that is because there weren't the cost of electricity, the cost of the raw water, the cost of treating that water, the cost of the employees kept going up, but the town didn't raise rates. So in 2020, we had to take that Band-Aid off and do some rate increases, and we had to do it again in 2022. We have to continuously look at this, and maybe some small incremental things. The cost of running the system does change, but there are some large capital improvements that we need to be looking forward to doing. This project was built into the 2022 rates. I'm thinking about projects that we have to do in the next 5 to 10 years after this project's in place, and we have to be thinking about that because we have to figure out how we can fund it. So, and we'll be talking again with our council and with the ratepayers, because that'll actually go through a public process when that comes forward. It's not something that we just go and do. I don't just hand it in and someone accepts it. It actually goes through a public vetting process. So everybody will see that come up. So I don't know if that answered your question in a roundabout way. Yeah. Hmm.
Where's that? How long will that be? Where is that gonna be? Because there's houses right there, on Cave Creek Road.
Yeah, I believe it actually starts on just at the corner of the parcel. So it stays within, the Cave Creek right away is fairly wide at that point. So we'll just be starting to widen the pavement off. Just I think if I remember, the taper starts about the edge of the property line. But because the right of way is so wide, we can widen that out and just bring that in. It's similar to the StoreQuest, actually, it's called a deceleration lane, actually is in front of our parcel. They start in front of our parcel, but it's in the right of way in front of the parcel that we have there. So we're actually going to tie the two deceleration lanes together with this project in effect.
They're designed the same like typically in front of shopping center, so that you don't hit the car in front of you. that
Yeah.
it's trying to Stop and turn right.
Yeah, that's why they call it a deceleration, so someone can turn in and slow down at the same time and get out of the traffic flow. So, yeah. Well, any other questions? Well, it's booster pumps, so you will have you'll hear the hum of the motors. That's why we placed it on the away from the homes as much as we can, and we shielded it as much as we can. It won't be noiseless. There'll be above ground motors, but we've placed them, I think, as far away from residential homes as we can with this. So I don't have a decibel level. I don't know what that might be, but yeah, when the pumps are running, they do make some noise. I anticipate when we're running this that you'll have some constant noise that they'll cycle up and down depending on the system demands. There's effectively, we have multiple pumps for both. I think it's 3 pumps for zone 4 and 4 pumps for zone 3. They'll cycle up and down as the system demands need it. So
Sean, there's some sound attenuation that I want you to kind of describe that.
yeah, again, the fact that we're inside of a wall will keep the sound from going further. The fact that we have the landscaping material, the landscaping berm should attenuate the sound also. And the fact that, the mass of the reservoir will prevent some water, some of the noise going into the neighboring surrounding areas. So it is a fairly large site. And again, the motors are towards Cave Creek Road, and the closest neighbor is actually the StoreQuest, or no, the storage unit. So to those. Well, he's very close.
But he's
Yeah.
describing the equipment, it's gonna make noise. It's further away from residential area.
But not mine. Yeah, she's right, because I'm on the side.
Yeah. So the pumps are shown at the south end of the site towards Cave Creek Road. That's where the pumps will be on this graphic here. So again, as far as we could get away from all the properties as we could is where we placed them. So
The area that's shown in green there,
Mhm.
What is that?
that's the landscaped earthen berm. So
How high would that be? I don't know.
Is that your husband or wife?
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's 6 feet tall. Lisa? That's
Yeah,
okay?
at the tallest point, because the site slopes down,
Yeah.
right, and then as
And
we.
then there's a wall behind that.
Yes, yes, we'll have the wall, the earthen berm, landscape material on top of that. Again, it'll start to grow up. And then the yellow area will actually have a full, we'll have an 8-foot wall around it. So,
Who's gonna be the contact person for us neighbors, like these people, and then we're right across the street. Our cul-de-sac comes right out, there it is. Who's gonna be the contact person for us when we pull out? We've already had issues with the last construction, black in the morning pulling out, and all of a sudden there's this huge sign that I think a couple of our neighbors hit it.
no,
We just left there, or they decided, they didn't consider like, hey, these people leaving for work could hit this sign. Or the courtesy of like, just leaving cones and stuff up when they could have just moved it and the traffic would have been 2 lanes. But these construction guys leave and they don't care, they don't live around the area, so they just leave the thing all weekend. And there's just 1 lane available when you look and go, well, why didn't this move over? So when we run into that issue, who do we talk to? The direct neighbors that I live right across the street at that, they live right next to it.
Yeah.
Who do we talk to?
well,
directly?
Todd will have a project superintendent and
Yeah.
Brad's a project manager for MGC.
Right, and there,
So-
go back to the sign will actually have the phone number of the contact person, so you can contact that person at any time.
Yeah.
When we go to place these signs, again, it's all about communication. When we're ready to go set those and they're near your house, we'll reach out to you guys, talk to you about, hey, the sign's gonna go right here. Is everything okay on that location? So we get buy-in from you guys when we're doing that. Then there will be signs out on the Cave Creek Road as well, so.
And again, the town we're open, so you can reach out to the town and ask us if something's going on. Again, we're bringing MGC on board to be the contractors to complete the scope of work. They're responsible for the site, and if something's directly happening, they'll have a contact number that you can reach out to. If you don't feel you're being satisfied, just reach out to us and we'll bring it back in. Black and Beach will also have a site representative that'll be on there. Their number will not be on the sign, but they'll be actually out there watching. So we'll actually have I think it's basically part-time, so half a day that we actually have a Black and Beach person who will actually be on the site and doing paperwork and also just watching the construction also, so.
Safety guard. And they never contacted anybody, they didn't ask anybody's idea, they just placed things out in the middle of the roadway. At an angle where we're pulling out of our subdivision, the sign was at an angle, and I couldn't even see it.
Hmm.
Because for your vision, it was parallel with my vision, so I couldn't see the sign and hit it head on.
Oh, yeah, is that recently the Aiken Gardner work that was being done with the, okay. Well, so it sounds like you're talking about specifically traffic control work on Cave Creek Road. Okay, yeah. This is a unique area because right in front of the site is actually town of Carefree's right away. So when we actually go to do and Todd needs to do work in the road, it's actually, he's got to get a permit from Carefree, and Carefree will approve the traffic control plan for the barricades and all that. So that's a kind of a uniqueness in the site. The land itself is actually Cave Creek, but we're actually working in Carefree's right away. But yeah, we'll try to be flexible. We will typically look at that stuff, but actually the permitting agency is Carefree when anything happens in Cave Creek Road at that point. So they'll be the one signing off on it. Carefree. That section of Cave Creek Road is actually Carefree's right of way. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, she got the good address, but the wrong one. Yes.
And there are certified letters that went out to the neighbor adjacent.
Mhm.
And I never got one, but could I get the letter, whatever was in that package?
Yeah, we will, because yeah, we sent them out a week and a half ago, I believe. So yeah, but we'll get you, we'll get your information before. Okay.
Good Saturday. Well, I'm adjacent to it.
Okay. Yeah, it includes some of the, not this PowerPoint presentation, but some of the graphics about the site. But yeah, I'll get your information after. Yeah. We'll get your information. We'll make sure you get a copy of it. So. Okay. So thank you so much for coming. Is there any more questions? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Pivoting to our citizens, we have great staff, and I think Sean represents you well, and there's some wonderful people working with him, so it's great to have someone who shows Cave Creek the quality of service that we see here.
Thank you. I take the compliment, and I thank the staff, our team. So thank you so much for taking your time tonight. It is a very large project for the town. I can't, the significance for the water system is, I wish we could do it more than two years and be done with it, but it's just the fact of the construction right now. And we'll be respectful as we can in getting the work done. So. Yes. Yeah, we have no need to go on the backside of the site. They'll be working, but.